Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to explore something I find really fascinating, and that's leadership,
Okay.
trust, and how all of that comes together to create a powerful organizational culture.
All right.
We'll be looking at all of this through the lens of Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last.
Great book.
Yeah. So for our listeners, get ready. We're going to discover what makes some teams just absolutely thrive,
Right.
while others, well, they struggle,
Yeah.
especially when things get a little bit tough.
Yeah. Sinek has this really interesting approach
Yeah.
where he connects leadership not just to the traditional ideas of, management and strategy,
Right.
but also to our biology
Mm.
and our deep-seated need as humans to
Yeah.
belong.
I like that. So he starts the book with a story.
Yeah. A really intense one.
Yeah, it's about Captain Mike Drowley, call sign Johnny Bravo.
Oh, wow.
It takes place in Afghanistan. And just picture this.
Yeah.
22 soldiers
Okay.
pinned down by enemy fire at night. And Drowley, he's flying an A-10 Warhog. And get this, he wasn't even ordered to intervene.
He just went in.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. That's incredible. It must have been incredibly risky.
Oh, absolutely. But he sensed, how much danger they were in.
Right.
And he decides to perform this really daring maneuver.
Uh-huh.
It's called a weather letdown. It basically shielded those troops from the enemy fire.
That's amazing. And he didn't even get a medal or anything?
Nope. Just the satisfaction of knowing he saved those lives.
Wow. Talk about selfless leadership.
Exactly. And that story, I think, really perfectly introduces this idea of the circle of safety.
Oh, yeah.
It's this feeling of trust and security.
Yeah.
Where everybody supports each other.
And I think we've all felt that at some point.
I hope so.
Right. Like when you know your team's got your back, no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, think about your own work environment. Do you feel that?
It's a good question to
Right.
think about. Sinek argues that this circle of safety
Yeah.
is essential for teams to really perform at their best.
Makes sense. So when we feel secure, we're more likely to collaborate, take risks.
Be creative.
Right. And all of that leads to innovation.
Exactly. And it's not just about feeling good either, right? It really impacts a company's success.
Like tangibly.
Oh, for sure. So remember Bob Chapman?
Oh, the CEO, Barry Wilmler.
Yeah, that's him. He takes over this struggling manufacturing company, Hasten Sandiacre,
I've heard of them.
and does something totally unexpected.
Like what?
So instead of the typical cost cutting
Right,
and
yeah.
layoffs, he focuses on building trust.
Interesting.
He actually removes the chain link fence.
What?
Yeah, the one that separated the factory workers from the office staff.
Wow.
It was this powerful symbol
Yeah.
of breaking down those barriers.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, what were the results of that?
Well, employee morale went way up. They felt valued.
Good.
They even started covering for each other, donating vacation days to a colleague who needed time off. Yeah, his wife was sick and he needed to take care of her.
Wow. That's incredible.
It really is. It shows how a leader prioritizing well-being
Right.
can create this ripple effect throughout the company.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Sinek, he goes even deeper
Okay.
and starts talking about the biological factors at play here.
I like where this is going.
He talks about these 4 chemicals
Okay.
that drive our behavior: endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Have you heard of these?
Yeah, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
How do they all kind of work together in a work environment?
Right. So endorphins, they give us that feel-good rush.
Okay.
Dopamine fuels our motivation and rewards. Serotonin is linked to pride and recognition. And then oxytocin, that's the one responsible for trust
Oh,
and bonding.
So we've got kind of the selfish and selfless chemicals all working together.
It's more nuanced than that, but yeah, you could say that
Oh.
while dopamine might get us going,
Mhm.
it's those selfless ones, the serotonin and oxytocin, that are crucial for those lasting bonds and a sense of belonging.
So he's saying that, focusing too much on that initial dopamine rush
Right.
can be detrimental in the long run.
Exactly. He warns against a dopamine-heavy culture.
Okay.
That's all about instant gratification and short-term gains.
Like, are there any companies he highlights that are doing it right?
He talks about Costco a lot.
Okay.
They're known for having this strong sense of community
Right.
and really valuing employee well-being.
Yeah, I've heard good things about working there.
Research actually backs this up.
Oh, really?
Companies with a strong circle of safety,
Okay.
where serotonin and oxytocin are flowing, they tend to be more innovative, more resilient, and more successful over time.
So it's not just about being nice.
Not at all.
There's an actual business advantage.
Right. It's like smart business to take care of your people.
Yeah, and that really highlights the importance of leadership in shaping all of this.
Absolutely.
Sinek brings up some pretty stark contrasts.
Oh, yeah. Like who?
Well, he talks about Saddam Hussein, ruling through fear and
Yeah.
self-interest. And then he contrasts that with someone like Captain David Marquet.
I don't know him.
He took command of the USS Santa Fe. It was a submarine,
Uh-huh.
but morale was just abysmal.
Oh, no.
But he completely turned things around.
Really?
Instead of just giving orders,
Right.
he empowered his crew to take ownership,
Interesting.
make decisions. He literally flipped the script.
That's wild. So what happened?
The Santa Fe went from worst to first in performance rankings.
Wow. Just from changing the leadership style.
Exactly. I mean, what kind of leadership do you see around you?
That's a good question to consider.
Does it inspire trust?
Yeah.
Does it make you feel empowered to contribute your best?
I think those are questions we all need to ask ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the dangers of abstraction, right?
Mhm.
And this whole idea of the me generation.
Mhm.
Sinek talks about this obsession with shareholder value,
Right.
which leads to short-term thinking. And, seeing employees as just expendable resources, like cogs in a machine.
Yeah, and he gives the example of AOL,
Yeah.
where teams were basically incentivized to just boost subscriber numbers
Right.
no matter what.
Even if it meant,
Exactly.
using some questionable tactics.
And then the retention team,
Right.
they were left to deal with all the fallout.
Oh, wow.
It created this whole dysfunctional cycle.
So he's really highlighting the danger of losing sight of the human element in all of this.
Right. When people become numbers on a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
it's easier to make choices that, you wouldn't even consider if
Yeah.
you were interacting with them face to face.
It's a pretty chilling thought.
It is. It is.
It reminds me of that Milgram experiment.
The one with the electric shocks?
Yeah. Where ordinary people were willing to administer what they thought were, like, painful shocks just because this authority figure told them to.
It's scary how easily we can be influenced.
And I think Sinek argues that this is especially relevant today because so much of our work
Right.
is done through technology.
It's easy to get detached from the human consequences of our actions.
Exactly. And I think that's why Sinek emphasizes the importance of having tangible goals
Okay.
and a really clear vision. He contrasts Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, which was so vivid
Right.
and compelling.
And it inspired an entire movement.
Yeah, he contrasts that with, like, abstract goals, like maximizing shareholder value.
Which is
It's harder to get emotionally invested in that.
so true.
Yeah.
It's like, you need something concrete,
Right.
something you can really grab onto.
And speaking of things that kind of hijack our focus, he talks a lot about social media,
Oh, yeah.
about those constant notifications they're designed
That
to.
trigger those dopamine hits.
All right.
Keep us hooked.
Yeah. He compares it to a snowmobile.
Okay.
It's built for snow, but it can run in the desert,
Right.
just not as well.
We're not designed to be constantly stimulated.
Exactly. He's saying we're wired for connection,
Yeah.
purpose, belonging.
We need to feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, and if we're stuck in this system that only prioritizes short-term gains,
And in abstract metrics.
then we're not going to thrive.
It's like running on fumes.
I like that.
You might get bursts of speed,
Right.
but you'll never win an endurance race.
That's a really good analogy. So what does all of this mean for us?
Right. Like, how do we take this and make it actionable?
Yeah.
Sinek, I think, is urging us to create a world where leaders prioritize empathy, integrity, and a circle of safety. He talks about redefining hardship.
Redefining hardship.
Yeah, in this age of abundance, you know?
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What are some examples of this?
Well, he highlights things like tackling climate change,
Okay.
social inequality, big issues that require a collective effort.
Right.
He's saying that by setting these ambitious goals,
Okay.
we can tap into our shared humanity and rediscover that drive.
I like that. So we're not just surviving, we're thriving.
And making a meaningful contribution.
And that brings us to the question, how do we actually start putting all of this into practice?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. And that's something we're going to explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Do tune.
But for now, I want to leave you with this thought. Sinek says that we can start by creating a circle of safety for ourselves.
Oh, I like that. That's a good place to start.
Yeah. So think about it. Who are those people in your life who make you feel safe, valued, and inspired?
It might be time to make a conscious effort. to surround ourselves with those individuals.
who are going to help us thrive.
Be sure to join us for the next part of this deep dive.
Yeah, we'll be back to explore the practical steps you can take.
I'm excited to get into that.
Yeah, to create a circle of safety in your own life
And
and become a force for positive change.
I like that. A force for positive change.
Okay, so we've got this idea of the circle of safety. But how do we actually create one? Not just for ourselves, but for,
Yeah, for our teams.
for the people around us.
Right.
So Sinek, he offers these, what he calls the rules of leadership, to really put these ideas into action.
I like that.
Yeah. And the first rule, it might seem a little bit counterintuitive.
How so?
Is to share your successes
Okay.
and your failures.
Oh. Now that's interesting, because I would think, wouldn't you want to hide your failures?
Right, you'd think so. But Sinek, he argues that transparency
Okay.
is really key to building that trust.
I can see that.
Yeah, it shows that you're human,
Right.
that you're willing to learn from your mistakes.
It takes the pressure off.
Right, exactly. It's about being vulnerable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Showing your team that it's okay to not be perfect.
I like that.
Yeah, and he gives the example of the Marine Corps,
Okay.
where admitting mistakes, it's not seen as weakness,
Right.
it's actually seen as strength.
Interesting.
It shows that they're committed to the mission
Uh-huh.
and to team safety.
Right. Putting that above their ego.
Exactly.
Oh.
And I just find that so powerful.
Yeah, me too. It creates this space where others can do the same, right?
Right.
Be vulnerable.
And that fosters genuine connection and learning.
Yeah. And then his second rule is to keep it manageable.
Keep it manageable.
Yeah. So he references this anthropologist, Robin Dunbar,
Okay.
and his research on the limits of human social connections.
Of Dunbar's number. It
Exact.
suggests that we can only really maintain.
About
Third.
150 stable relationships.
Yeah. So think about what happens when teams or organizations grow way beyond that number.
Right.
You start to lose that sense of personal connection,
Yeah.
that feeling of belonging, which is so crucial.
For the circle of safety.
For everything, really.
Right.
He talks about W.L. Gore and Associate.
A company that makes Gore-Tex.
Yep, that's the one. And they intentionally keep their units small,
Oh, really?
like usually no more than 150 people,
Wow.
to really cultivate that sense of community. What about your workplace? That's a good question. I don't think they specifically, have a rule
Yeah.
about keeping teams that small.
But have you noticed any, benefits or drawbacks?
Well, I think, as companies grow,
Yeah.
it's easy to kind of lose sight of that
Right.
human
I
element.
got connection.
Yeah. So maybe bigger isn't always better.
Especially when it comes to, fostering those human connections.
I like that.
Yeah.
His third rule is to meet the people you help.
Oh, interesting.
He talks about this study where fundraisers
Okay.
who actually met the scholarship recipients
Uh-huh.
that they were calling for, they were significantly more successful.
Oh, wow. Why do you think that is?
I think it speaks to our wiring for empathy.
Okay.
When we can see the direct impact
Mm.
of our actions,
Yeah.
when we can put a face
Your name.
to the people we're helping, it just ignites our purpose.
Right. It becomes real.
It does. It becomes real.
It's not just some abstract idea anymore.
Exactly. It reminds me of Cami Yoder.
Oh, the aid worker.
Yeah. She was so affected by the Syrian refugee crisis.
I remember that story. What was it? She met this young girl.
Yeah. And it wasn't until that personal encounter
Yeah.
that the impact really hit her.
It's amazing how personal stories can
Yeah.
just resonate more deeply than abstract statistics.
Absolutely. And then his fourth and final rule is
Mhm.
to give time, not just money.
Oh, that's a good one. Because we often equate value with money, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
But what about the value of time?
Right. I mean, think about it. If a friend helps you move,
Yeah. Yeah.
spending hours packing and unpacking boxes,
Yeah.
wouldn't you feel more indebted to them
Of course.
than if they had just, paid for movers?
For sure. Because time is finite, right? We can't get it back.
Right. And when someone gives us their time, it shows a deep level of commitment.
Yeah. It's like they're choosing to spend their time with us.
And that's valuable.
It really is. So how does this apply to leadership?
Well, Sinek argues that leaders need to give their teams their time, their attention, and mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
He contrasts Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE,
Yeah.
who was known for his, ruthless focus on shareholder value
Right.
and this system of ranking and yanking employees.
Yeah, not a great culture.
Not a great culture. And then he contrasts that with James Sinegal,
Okay.
co-founder of Costco.
I like Costco.
He prioritized employee well-being,
Good.
this
Yep.
culture of fairness and respect.
And look at how well Costco does.
Consistently outperforms their competitors,
Exactly.
both in employee satisfaction
Right.
and long-term profitability.
So putting people first,
Yeah.
it's not just ethically sound.
It's smart.
It's good business.
It is. In fact, Sinek calls focusing on shareholder value above all else
Oh, yeah.
the dumbest idea in the world.
Whoa. That's a bold statement. What leads him to that conclusion?
He argues that chasing short-term profits
Right.
can actually sacrifice long-term sustainability and innovation.
I see that.
You know, it's like eating all your seed corn.
Oh, I like that analogy.
You feast today, but what are you going to plant for tomorrow?
You're not thinking about the future.
Exactly. And he believes we're at a crossroads.
Okay.
You know, we can continue down this path of abstraction
Mm-hmm.
and isolation driven by, dopamine hits.
And short-term thinking.
Right.
Instant gratification.
Or
Yeah.
we can choose to create a world.
Where leaders embrace empathy,
Yes.
integrity, and the circle of safety.
And he suggests we redefine hardship.
It's a powerful idea, isn't it?
It is. What are your thoughts on this? Like, how do we even begin to do that?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. But I think he's saying we need to shift our focus
Okay.
from, individual success
Right.
to tackling these large-scale challenges.
That require us to work together.
Exactly. What are some things that come to mind for you?
Well, he mentions things like climate change,
Yeah.
ending poverty,
Right.
huge issues that demand collaboration.
Absolutely. And a shared sense of purpose.
Right. And I think it's about finding people who share that passion.
Mm-hmm.
Surround yourself with those who want to work alongside you.
Yeah, to make a difference.
To make a difference. That's how you create a circle of safety.
That's not just about getting by,
No.
but about thriving
Exactly.
and making a meaningful contribution.
He talks about this pilot
Okay.
who had to break all the rules to save his passengers.
During an emergency landing.
Yeah, that one. And it's a great example of how sometimes we need to trust our gut.
Yeah.
Do what we know is right, even if it means going against convention.
Like being courageous,
Yeah,
challenging the status quo.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
standing up for what you believe in.
And we don't need permission from anyone to lead.
That's right.
I mean, his book is full of these stories.
It is.
Bob Chapman, Captain Marquet, Art Fry, the guy who invented the Post-it note.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And these stories show us that leadership,
It's not about titles.
it's a mindset.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing potential in others, inspiring them to be their best.
And creating that space where everyone can thrive.
Exactly. So what stands out to you from these examples?
Well, I think the thing that resonates most with me is
Yeah.
how Sinek emphasizes that leadership exists at every level.
I love that. It's not just CEOs and politicians.
It's the parent creating that safe space for their kid,
Yeah.
the teacher who empowers their students to think critically,
Right.
the friend who offers a listening ear without judgment.
They're those everyday actions that can really make a difference.
That ripple effect again.
Right. He's suggesting that we all have this potential to lead
To inspire.
and to create positive change.
Absolutely. And that's what I hope people take away from this.
As we move into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this question. What small act of leadership can you take today
Yeah.
to create a circle of safety?
In your own little corner of the world.
Exactly. So we've talked about this circle of safety, the biology of trust, the need for tangible goals,
Yeah.
but it can feel kind of overwhelming, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To think about how to put all of this into action.
It can. It can. But lasting change, it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's a journey.
It is.
And Sinek, he offers this really great starting point.
Okay.
Begin with yourself.
Okay. Start small.
Yeah, because it's easy to, get caught up wanting to change the world.
Right?
But real change, it starts with us,
Yeah.
with our own thoughts and actions and choices.
Yeah.
He uses this analogy of a pebble in a pond,
Oh,
creating these ripples that spread outward.
I like that.
So if you want to create a circle of safety at work,
Yeah.
or even in your personal life,
Right.
start by creating one for yourself.
So figure out what makes you feel
Yeah, what makes you feel valued, respected,
Right.
what kind of environment allows you to really thrive.
Yeah. That's a good point. Once you have that understanding,
Yeah,
you can start creating that for other people.
exactly. And it doesn't have to be these grand gestures.
Yeah.
Sometimes the smallest things can make the biggest impact.
Like just actively listening to a colleague
Yeah,
who's having a hard time.
offering to help someone.
Right.
Or just being present with your loved one.
Being present, yeah. Those little things,
Those everyday acts of kindness.
they build up.
They really do.
And Sinek talks about how in this age of abundance,
Right.
we've kind of lost touch.
With the power of shared struggle.
Shared struggle. So he's saying,
Yeah, like think back to earlier times
right,
when hardship was just a constant.
right.
People had to rely on each other to survive.
Yeah, yeah.
He thinks we can redefine hardship.
Okay. So not just surviving, but thriving.
Yeah, in a way that, makes sense for our modern world.
So instead of focusing on comfort and convenience,
Right.
we embrace challenges
Yeah.
that require collective effort. What are some examples?
Well, he talks about things like climate change,
Big issues.
social inequality,
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of scientific discovery.
So it's about finding those things,
Yeah.
those big goals.
Yeah, that demand we all work together.
And what about you? What comes to mind for you?
That's a good question. I think for me,
Yeah.
it's about finding those things that really light you up. Those big, challenging goals that spark your passion.
So find your passion.
Yeah.
And then,
Find people who share it.
oh, yeah.
Surround yourself with those who want to work alongside you
Okay.
and make a difference.
So create that circle.
Yeah, a circle of safety that's not just about getting by,
Right.
but about thriving.
And making a real contribution.
Sinek's book, it's just filled with stories of
Yeah.
everyday people doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Bob Chapman, Captain Marquet, Art Fry, the Post-it note guy.
Right. It's amazing what people can do.
They all show that leadership.
It's a mindset,
Yeah, it's about seeing potential in others.
inspiring them to be their best.
Creating an environment where they can flourish.
And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I really hope you walk away feeling empowered.
To embrace your own potential for leadership.
Because we all have that
You
capacity.
do. We really do.
To lead, to inspire, to create positive change.
I love that.
So think about it.
Yeah.
What's one small action you can take today?
No matter how small,
Right.
to create a circle of safety in your own world, remember,
Yeah.
it starts with you.
It does.
And even the smallest pebble, it can create ripples that extend far beyond what we can imagine.
That's a great note to end on. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope you learned something
I know I have.
and that you feel inspired to go out there and create a circle of safety in your own life.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep leading.